Hello my dear students, this is Dr. 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗺, your biochemistry guru. Now in this video we are going to discuss the metabolic errors due to the oxidation of fatty acids. Now this is again a very important topic because in my previous video I had just discussed about the beta oxidation of fatty acids, the major pathways, the minor pathways, the status of 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗺s, MCADs, 𝗪CADs and VLCADs. Now we are going to discuss about the metabolic errors or inborn errors of metabolism. Of fatty acids. We all know that fatty acid oxidation is a catabolic process which is occurring in the mitochondria, in the peroxisomes, in the endoplasmic reticulum and so on. Now what are the metabolic errors related to this? Now first of all, a very important one is MCAD deficiency. Right, which leads to 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗆, which is sudden infant death syndrome. Okay, so what is this MCAD? What is this 𝗲𝗵𝗆? So MCAD is medium chain acyl-dehydrogenase enzyme. Right, deficiency of this enzyme will lead to sudden infant death syndrome. Now basically what happens is, we know that beta oxidation of fatty acids require the different type of dehydrogenases. Now what will happen if a child who is born with a deficiency of the enzyme which is catalyzing beta oxidation? Right? So what will be the repercussions of this? So now see what happens is, what is the biochemical rationale behind this? Because if this enzyme is deficient or deficiency of this beta oxidation will not take place. Okay, because this is the main enzyme required. Now if beta oxidation cannot take place, then it will lead to what? Decreased acetyl coenzyme A. Because beta oxidation ho rahi hai, then only acetyl coenzyme A is being produced. Now when beta oxidation is not occurring, decreased acetyl coenzyme is there, so there will be decreased ATP. The child will not get energy also. Now the question is, when acetyl coenzyme A is not being produced, there is another process also, gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is which is giving what? Glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors. Now the problem is, if there is decreased acetyl coenzyme A, first of all, so this acetyl coenzyme A is a allosteric modulator of gluconeogenesis also. We know that. The first step, if you remember in gluconeogenesis, conversion of pyruvic acid to oxaloacetic acid. Because whenever there is, in a normal individual, I am saying that whenever fasting is there, fasting mein there is increased beta oxidation which will release acetyl coenzyme A, which will modulate which will moderate gluconeogenesis. Now the question is, कि when the concentration of acetyl coenzyme A decreases, gluconeogenesis will not take place. If gluconeogenesis does not take place, there will be decreased concentration of glucose. On the other hand, if acetyl coenzyme A, ketone bodies will not be produced. So you can say that so many things will occur when a child is born with the deficiency of medium chain acyl dehydrogenase. So automatically beta oxidation will be impaired. When beta oxidation will be impaired, there will be decreased concentration of acetyl coenzyme A. The source which can give energy, they are the ketone bodies, but again ketone bodies are being produced by acetyl coenzyme A, which will also not be produced. And then acetyl coenzyme A can accelerate gluconeogenesis, which can form glucose, but this reaction will also be hampered. So even though frequent feeding of a child will be done, but yes, the child will die. Why? Because the child will die due to hypoglycemia first of all, and there will not be any energy given by other sources. And that is why it will lead to sudden infant death syndrome. This is very important. So this is one very important inborn error of metabolism associated with the oxidation of fatty acids. Commonly we call it as MCAD deficiency, which will lead to 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗵. Then second disorder is 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗺 syndrome. 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗺 syndrome. Now this is actually a protein targeting disorder, or this is actually a peroxisomal targeting disorder. So what happens in 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗺 syndrome? These VLCADs are being targeted to the peroxisomes for oxidation. Right. And what happens here is the gene targeting the protein, which is actually leading to the transport of that, is absent. Suppose if it is absent, it will lead to what? There will be increased concentration of VLCADs. Right. And what will happen is, if the concentration of VLCADs increases, it is increased in the brain, in the liver, and in the kidneys. That is why 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗺 syndrome is also known as cerebrohepatorenal syndrome. And if we talk about why it occurs, because the gene targeting PTS, gene targeting the protein which is required for its transport for the oxidation, is faulty. And that is why we call it first of all as a cerebrohepatorenal syndrome. And what happens here is, it is a peroxisomal biogenesis disorder. Biogenesis disorder. And if we talk about, and it is also known as peroxisomal ghost. Peroxisomal ghost, right? And if we talk about the clinical features here, the child who is born with this 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗺 syndrome will have mongoloid faces. Mongoloid face will be there, right? Epicanthal folds will be there. Well, typical Mongolian look. And he will have frontal bossing and a prominent forehead. Right. So this is second disorder associated with the fatty acids, 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗺 syndrome, where there is infiltration or increased concentration of VLCADs. And it is also known as a peroxisomal biogenesis disorder or syndrome. Then we come over to the third one. Third one is Refsum's disease. Refsum's disease. Now what happens in Refsum's disease? It is actually a disorder of alpha oxidation. Disorder related to alpha oxidation. And I told you alpha oxidation is for those carbon atoms, yeah, you can say for those fatty acids which are having phytanic acid. So obviously if phytanic acid has to be degraded, the enzyme has to be phytate oxidase. So in Refsum's disease, if we talk about the defect here, the defect is alpha phytate oxidase. Alpha phytate oxidase. This enzyme is absent. This alpha phytate oxidase enzyme is absent. So what will happen? Obviously, this enzyme is required for the degradation of phytanic acid. Right? And the enzyme is alpha phytate oxidase. Right? Into soluble products. So, if this is lacking, it will lead to the increased concentration of phytanic acid. Right? And this will lead to Refsum's disease. And if we talk about the clinical features, first of all, the person who is suffering from Refsum's disease it will be difficult for that person to digest the green leafy vegetables or to digest anything related with phytanic acid. So clinical features will be retinitis, pigmentosa will be there, vision will be affected, and the most important one here is the person will have a that scaly kind of thing, जैसे scaly kind of skin will be there, जैसे fish has scales, 𝗖𝗵𝗵𝗆 will be there, so fish like skin will be there like scales and all, rough scales, roughy patchy skin, rough skin. And obviously little bit of peripheral neurological manifestations will also be there because fatty acids are the one which are giving energy. So Refsum's disease will lead to this. Then or you can say restriction is, the restriction would be anything rich in phytanic acid. So we can say that goat's milk or green leafy vegetables. Vegetables are avoided. Right? Then we come over to the fourth disorder, which is known as Jamaican vomiting sickness. Jamaican vomiting sickness. Now what happens in this Jamaican? As we can see, it was first found in the area of Jamaica, which is in West Africa. It's like a kind of tribe. So what happens is, there one ackee fruit is there. So if we eat that unripe ackee fruit, so what happens is, the person who eats that unripe ackee fruit, it has a very toxic substance which is hypoglycin. So that hypoglycin puts the person into hypoglycemia. Okay. So what happens is, since it is present in the native people of Jamaica, and it is due to eating of unripe ackee fruit. Unripe ackee fruit. So what happens is, this unripe ackee fruit has a toxin called hypoglycin. So this hypoglycin is going to block this beta oxidation. So same thing will happen, decreased acetyl-CoA, decreased ATP and decreased gluconeogenesis. Okay, and if we talk about, so it will lead to what? It will lead to vomitings will be there, continuous vomitings will come. It will lead to diarrhea because it will be difficult to digest. It will lead to convulsions because the person is not getting energy, because hypoglycemia is there and this hypoglycin is interrupting beta oxidation also. So convulsions will be there. Okay, so these are the 4 main disorders which are associated with the oxidation of fatty acids. One is MCAD deficiency, which will lead to 𝗲𝗵 sudden infant death syndrome. Then is 𝗲𝗵·ڀ·ž syndrome, which is also known as cerebrohepatorenal syndrome. Third one is Jamaican vomiting sickness, which is due to the eating of that unripe ackee fruit, and mainly it is prevalent in Jamaica. And the fourth one is Refsum's disease, where the deficient enzyme is 𝗵𝗵·phytate oxidase, which is required to degrade phytanic acid. So that person should avoid the green leafy vegetables which are having phytanic acid and milk, which is again rich in phytanic acid. So this is a very small video. Why I have made a separate video? So that there should be less confusion. Okay, and that is why I have divided this oxidation of fatty acids into 3 videos. In the first video, this is in continuation with the rest. In the first video, I have just simply discussed about the beta oxidation of fatty acids, and that too of long chain fatty acids. Then in the next video, I have discussed about the beta oxidation of very long chain fatty acids and the minor pathways, which are alpha oxidation and omega oxidation. And this video, I have discussed the inborn error of metabolism associated with the oxidation of fatty acids. So that's all in this video. Thank you so much.